And you just get lost in everybody else's stuff. So Socrates and others, it began to be a philosophy passed down. Avoid pride, avoid humility. And similarly, if you can balance things up in the middle, then you're living a life that is good and powerful. And then Jesus shows up on the scene. And Jesus looked at this philosophy. And he goes, not quite. The first thing Jesus made clear was this. He said, you know, the problem here and the problem here is that you're using the wrong standard of comparison. Comparing yourselves with other people is foolish. In fact, here are some words of one of the students of Jesus who recorded a lot of Jesus' thoughts and words. This is actually the Apostle Paul. It's found in 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 12. It says this: We do not dare to classify or compare ourselves with some who commend themselves. Because when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves among themselves, they are not wise. That little phrase, they are not wise, is known as a rhetorical device. It means making a point by extreme understatement. The point Paul was making was simply this: if you compare yourself with other people to figure out where you stand, you're being stupid. It's foolish. It's dumb. It's idiotic. Don't do it. It's the wrong standard of comparison. So what is the right standard of comparison? God. How do you stack up there? You know, I find it very possible to look around and compare myself with other people, and as long as I use Dave's specially concocted criteria, I can be pretty good. As long as I use my specially concocted, criteria. But when I compare myself to God, it's like, game, set, match, it's over. God is so much more superior to me. I am driven into humility because he is superior and I am inferior. I might be smart, but God is omniscient. I might have personal power, but God can speak a word and bam, the universe exists. I might have a certain measure of wisdom, but God knows the beginning from the end and where every path leads. I might be able to get a sense of the day by helping to understand the past, but God lives in the past, lives in the present, lives in the future. Nothing escapes his wisdom and knowledge. I might have attained a certain measure of goodness, but God is flawless. And when I compare myself to God, I am simply driven to humility. He is so superior to me in every single way that I must defer to him. I must surrender to him. I must make my life revolve around this infinitely superior being. That's what humility does. When I was a young man, I was actually in graduate school. I was in my early middle 20s. I really started getting into the game of tennis. And when I get into something, I tend to get really passionate about it and devote all the time to it. And I really got into it, and I would play 3, 4, 5 times a week. I would learn about the game. And I got to the place that I was like beating everybody I played. And so I began looking for a higher rank of players, and I began to play players who would play in like state amateur tournaments. And I began holding my own with them. And I actually began to think, you know what, maybe rather than pastoring, I should be a professional tennis player. I'm pretty good. I'm young and shape and power and learn all this stuff. This is pretty good. Well, Dunlop Sports happened to be its national American headquarters were located in the same city I lived in down south at the time. And I used to do some work for them and actually some consulting for them and some different things. And one day, their leader of operations came to me and said, hey, listen, Bob Howell is coming to the United States. Would you like to play tennis with Bob Howell? I'm like, who's Bob Howell? So, well, he's the top-ranked 55 and over player in the world. I'm like 23. And I'm going, seriously? Yeah, I'll play him. It's really fun. Because I'm going, he is 55. That's death's doorstep. 55. I hope he did, you know what? I hope he didn't have a heart attack playing the second set. So he said, yeah, I'll play, Bob. So, the morning came, and Scott DeMo picked us up, and we went out to some tennis courts, and, we were talking, and he began rallying, and we'd be talking, and Bob began to, just very casually, with this really cool Australian accent, began to, say certain things about tennis, and about philosophy of the game, and he'd be talking, and I'm going, yeah. And he talked a little bit about, hey, when you hit that topspin, if you kind of do this, and I'm like, yeah. Oh, geezer, shut up. And then after we'd warmed up sufficiently, and I said, Bob, are you sure you're ready? You need more time? I know that as you get older, it takes more time to warm up. You need any more time? He's like, it's okay, mate. Okay, fine, So I'm like, I'm ready to go, okay? And I'm going, okay? It could be close at first, but I will so outlast him. I will so overpower him. This will be. And I want you to know that it was, and I'm not lying, an absolutely devastating, overpowering match. It's just a wrong person won. It was actually hilarious to watch. Because I'm there, sort of, yeah. And Bob's back there going, and what would happen is, I began to pick this up deep into the first set. Like when it was like 4-love, 5-love, his favorite. Is that something would happen, and all of a sudden I realized, and it's like all of a sudden I realized I'm going, it was like he had me on a string. And then it was like, I could never get there. And I'm going to, how you doing, Bob? Fine, man. He destroyed me. 6-love, 6-1, and the one I think was mercy he gave it to me. When we got done, and Bob wanted to talk tennis, I soaked up every word he said. Because I recognized he was just superior to me. He knew more, he could do more, and the only response when you're in the face of someone more powerful, smarter, better in every way is just humble and defer. And that's kind of how it works with God. He's so much better in every way, so much smarter, so much wiser, so much more loving, so much more good, that in the face of that awesome superiority, the only thing that makes sense is this absolute humility to just bow and say, you know what, my life can't even be around me, it needs to be around you because you are awesome. And whatever you say, whatever you want to do, because you are incredible. You're the best. It's humility. This is why humility fuels obedience. It's why people with pride don't obey. Because when we are pride, I just curse a little bit, but whenever we act pridefully, whenever we decide we're going to do our own thing or go our own way, what we're really saying is, I'm just a little smarter than God on this one. Humility fuels obedience. You're smarter than me, wiser than me, you know, you're better than me. You call the shots, okay? It's your deal. Now, here's the fascinating thing. When we live humbly before God, it changes the way we look at ourselves. We begin to see ourselves through God's eyes. And when we begin to see ourselves through God's eyes, here's what we see. We see weaknesses, yes, but strengths. We see flaws, yes, but we see aptitudes and abilities. And we see that while we are limited and while we are flawed, we are also endowed by this God who is so superior with some incredible abilities, aptitudes, that He wired into us.